The Alpha King's breeder. The full moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the Shadowfang Pack's crumbling village. Hunger and despair clung to the air like a thick fog, suffocating the wolves who lived in perpetual suffering. Their food supplies were constantly raided by Gregor's enforcers, leaving families to starve, their ribs visible beneath their fur. Pups, too weak to play, lay listless in the dirt, their eyes hollow with malnutrition. Among them was Ava, the daughter of Alpha Gregor, a man feared for his ruthlessness and despised for his cruelty. He ruled with an iron fist, punishing even the smallest infractions with merciless beatings. Once he had executed a mother for stealing a single loaf of bread to feed her child, leaving the pack terrified and broken. Ava, too, bore the weight of his neglect. She and her mother, once a proud Luna, had been subjected to his wrath for years. Their wolves, constantly kept in submission through both physical and emotional torment, had grown frail. The scars on Ava's back told stories of the many whippings she had endured simply for speaking out, while her mother's once radiant presence had withered into a shadow of its former self, eyes dull and lifeless. They were prisoners in their own home, trapped under the rule of a man who cared for nothing but his own gain. It was on one particularly cruel night that Ava's fate was sealed. "You cannot do this," Ava's mother Lillian cried, clutching her daughter's arm as Gregor grinned wickedly. "She's mine to do with as I please," he snarled. "And if selling her to Beta Magnus means I get to keep my pack intact, then so be it." Ava's heart pounded. She had heard of Beta Magnus, the right-hand man to Alpha King Lucian, the most feared ruler in all the realms. The king had lost his joy for life after his mate's tragic death, and his heart had turned cold as stone. Word had spread that he no longer sought love but rather an heir, a child to continue his legacy. Ava, barely more than a pawn in her father's game, was to be sold like cattle. Magnus, an imposing wolf with a calculating gaze, merely gave Gregor a look of disgust before stepping forward. His voice, deep and laced with disdain, cut through the tension. "You are a disgrace to your title, Gregor." His eyes flicked to Ava, and something softened just slightly before he turned back to her father. "You treat your own blood like property. I pity this pack." Gregor sneered. "Spare me your judgment, Beta. Take her and leave." Magnus's grip on Ava's arm was firm but not harsh. He led her away, but as they passed through the threshold, he subtly placed a cloak over her shoulders, shielding her from the night's bitter chill. It was a small act, yet it sent a jolt of unexpected comfort through her. "Say your goodbyes," he muttered. "Your life changes tonight." Her mother sobbed, kissing Ava's forehead. "Be strong, my love. You are more than what they make you out to be." Ava clung to those words as she was dragged away. As they walked, Magnus's presence was overwhelming, but he did not yank her forward or treat her roughly. Instead, he adjusted his grip, his hold becoming almost protective. When she stumbled, he caught her, steadying her with a quiet murmur of, "Easy." It was the first kindness she had known in years, and it left her shaken. The journey to Blackthorn Castle was long and grueling. The fortress loomed in the distance, a foreboding structure of black stone, its towering walls jagged and imposing, as if carved from the very shadows of the night. The iron gates creaked ominously as they were pulled open, revealing an overgrown courtyard where the remnants of a once grand garden lay in ruins. Roses, long untended, grew wild, their thorns snaking over crumbling stone pathways in the greenhouse. Its glass cracked and clouded with neglect, stood as a ghostly reminder of forgotten beauty. Inside the castle was no less intimidating. The grand hall stretched endlessly, its high ceilings adorned with elaborate chandeliers, their candlelight flickering weakly, casting eerie shadows on the cold, obsidian walls. Heavy velvet drapes lined the windows, their deep crimson fabric faded with age. The marble floors were immaculate yet unwelcoming, their pristine surface reflecting the emptiness of the cavernous space. The air carried the faint scent of damp stone and burning wood, a mixture both comforting and oppressive. Ava's body trembled as she was led past towering columns in ancient tapestries, their once vibrant colors dulled by time. At the far end of the hall, upon a massive throne carved from dark mahogany, sat a figure draped in power and solitude. Lucian, the Alpha King. His presence was overwhelming. Long dark hair framed his chiseled face, and his amber eyes burned with intensity. He exuded power, authority, and a dangerous kind of allure. Ava had expected him to be monstrous, a beast with no soul. Yet, beneath the layers of cruelty, she sensed something else. Pain. Magnus bowed. Alpha, I have brought you the girl as per our agreement. Lucian's sharp gaze flickered to Ava, and for a moment she saw something akin to surprise in his eyes. As she hesitated, her hands clenched at her sides. She lifted her head, forcing herself to meet his stare despite the fear curling in her chest. His gaze lingered, assessing, before his expression shifted back to its usual impassiveness, but the brief moment of surprise remained etched in her mind, making her pulse race with uncertainty. She's small, he remarked, standing. Fragile. Ava lowered her gaze, shame creeping up her spine. I am stronger than I look, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucian's lips twitched as if her defiance amused him. We shall see. From that day, Ava was placed under the care of the palace staff, instructed on her duties. She was expected to bear the king and heir, nothing more. The realization settled over her like a suffocating weight, her mind spinning with fear and despair. The walls of the grand castle felt more like the bars of a gilded cage, trapping her in a fate she had no say in. She lay awake at night, staring at the ornate ceiling, wondering if this was all her life would ever be. Just another pawn in a cruel game, her body nothing more than a vessel for another's legacy. Memories of her father's cruelty resurfaced, the way he had treated her and her mother as disposable, their worth dictated by their usefulness. She clenched her fists, refusing to let history repeat itself. No, she would not be a mere breeder. She was more than her bloodline, more than her past. Determination began to kindle inside her, burning away the helplessness. If she was to survive in this world, she would carve out her own place. She would find a way to be seen, to be valued for more than just her ability to bear a child. She would not let them break her anymore. Ava was determined to be more than just a breeder. Days turned into weeks, and Ava observed the Alpha King closely. He was a man of control, calculated in his actions, yet something in him cracked whenever she challenged him. She spoke to him without fear, questioned his methods, and even dared to suggest that there was still kindness left within him. You act as though you care for nothing, she said one evening as they sat across from each other in the dimly lit dining hall. But I don't believe that. Lucian's amber eyes flickered toward her, his expression unreadable. Believe what you will, he murmured, swirling the goblet in his hand. It makes no difference. Ava pursed her lips undeterred. Then why did you hesitate the first time you saw me? Why do you listen when I speak, instead of silencing me like the others? Lucian's jaw tensed. You are bold, Ava. You tread dangerous waters. Maybe I don't fear drowning, she replied, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken emotions. Then, with a sigh, Lucian leaned back, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. Or perhaps you are too stubborn to know when to be afraid. Ava allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps, but you haven't thrown me out yet. Lucian exhaled slowly, his amusement fleeting. No, he admitted. I haven't. And that, she realized, was the first crack in the wall he had so carefully built around himself. Lucian found himself drawn to her in ways he had never anticipated. She was not the weak, broken girl he had expected. She was resilient, compassionate, and had a fire that warmed the icy halls of his castle. One evening, as they walked through the candlelit corridors, Ava hesitated before speaking. Do you ever regret it? The way you rule? The fear you instill in others? Lucian paused mid-step, his sharp amber eyes narrowing. Fear keeps people in line. It ensures order. Ava shook her head, but it also ensures loneliness. A flicker of something, perhaps pain, perhaps irritation, crossed his face. You assume much, Ava. I observe much, she corrected, meeting his gaze steadily. You act like you don't care, but I think you do. I think, beneath all that power and cruelty, there's someone who doesn't want to be alone. Lucian's jaw tightened. And what would you have me do, become weak? Allow others to see vulnerability? That is how kings fall. Ava took a step closer, her voice softer now. Number. That's how kings live. You don't have to let the past dictate your future. You don't have to be this way forever. Lucian exhaled sharply, as if her words unsettled something buried deep within him. He turned away, but not before she saw the ghost of doubt in his eyes. And for the first time, she knew she had reached something in him. Something real. Something raw. He may have been the Alpha King, but in that moment, he was simply a man trying to hold himself together. One evening, as they walked through the moonlit gardens, he turned to her, his voice softer than before. Why do you not fear me? Ava met his gaze, her green eyes unwavering. Because I see you, Lucian. Not the king, not the monster they whisper about, but the man who has suffered and lost. His breath hitched. No one had ever dared to speak to him this way, and no one had ever looked at him with anything but fear. She touched his hand gently, sending a warmth through his cold skin. You are not as cruel as you pretend to be. Something broke inside him that night. He did not kiss her then, but he knew, in that moment, she had become more than just a means to an heir. She had become his salvation. As time passed, Lucian's walls crumbled. He found himself craving her presence, seeking her laughter, longing for her touch. He would watch her from afar, his chest tightening at the way she carried herself with quiet strength, how she defied him yet never disrespected him. He had spent years building a fortress around his heart, but with every conversation, every fleeting glance, Ava chipped away at his carefully crafted armor. Ava too fell for the man behind the crown. She had expected only cruelty from him, yet he surprised her in small, unexpected ways. The way he listened when she spoke, the way his hand would linger just a second longer when he helped her from a carriage, the rare moments when his gaze softened as he looked at her. She could see the torment in his eyes, the grief that lingered in the depths of his soul, and she needed, to reach him. One evening, as they sat by the roaring fire in his chambers, silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken desires. Ava could feel the heat of his stare, could sense the war waging within him. You don't have to fight it, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucian's jaw tensed. Fight what? She met his gaze, her emerald eyes searching his amber ones. This. Us. A muscle in his cheek twitched. I cannot give you what you deserve, Ava. And what is that? She leaned closer, her breath mingling with his. Love? Happiness? A future? He exhaled shakily, his fingers grazing her cheek. You deserve more than a man haunted by his past. Then let me be your future, she whispered. Then came the night when he could no longer deny it. Under the glow of the full moon, he pulled her into his arms, his voice a husky whisper against her lips. You have bewitched me, Ava. She smiled, pressing a hand to his chest where his heart pounded wildly. Then let me love you, Lucian. Let me remind you what it means to live. And he did. With every stolen kiss, with every whispered promise, he let her in. He made love to her not as a breeder, not as a possession, but as a man desperate to hold on to the only light in his darkness. With every touch, he poured his longing, his fears, his silent confessions into her. And for the first time in years, he felt alive. But happiness never came without a price. Word spread of their growing bond. and those who wished to see Lucian remain cold and cruel sought to destroy what they had built. His enemies within the council conspired, whispering of Ava's unworthiness, of her past, of how she was the daughter of a disgraceful alpha. Among those most envious were the high-born she-wolves of the pack, females who had long desired Lucian's favor, who had spent years vying for his attention. Their jealousy burned like a wildfire, fueling whispers that grew into taunts. In the corridors, Ava found herself at the mercy of their sharp tongues and scornful laughter. "She's nothing but a breeder," sneered Celeste, the daughter of a noble alpha. "How pathetic, thinking she could be anything more." Another, a striking wolf named Selene, leaned in as Ava passed. "Does she even belong here? Or is she just another of Lucian's passing amusements?" Ava clenched her fists, swallowing the hurt, but their words clung to her like shadows. She was no fool. She knew she was an outsider, that she would always be judged for where she came from. But she had come too far to let their cruelty break her. One day, as she carried a tray through the halls, Selene purposefully stuck out a foot, sending Ava sprawling, the contents of the tray crashing onto the floor. The she-wolves laughed as Ava struggled to rise, her palms stinging from the impact. Before she could speak, a deep growl filled the hallway. The laughter died instantly. Lucian. His amber eyes blazed with fury as he stepped forward. "Is this how my pack treats their own?" Selene shrank back, but Celeste, ever bold, lifted her chin. "We only mean to remind her of her place, Alpha." Lucian's growl deepened. "Her place is beside me. If anyone has forgotten that, they will learn quickly." He turned his gaze to Ava. Softer now. "Come with me." As Ava followed him, she felt a newfound strength bloom within her, and his compassion. But Lucian did not stop there. He summoned the entire pack to the grand hall that very night, his voice echoing through the corridors with an authority that could not be ignored. Wolves of all ranks gathered, their curiosity and apprehension evident in their hushed whispers. Lucian stood at the head of the great hall, his piercing gaze sweeping across his people. "For too long, there has been division in this pack," he declared, his voice steady but sharp. "There are those who believe that strength is measured by bloodline alone, who believe that a wolf's worth is determined by where they come from, rather than who they are. That ends today." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but no one dared to speak. Lucian continued. "Ava is my mate, and she is to be treated with the respect she deserves. She has endured suffering none of you could imagine, and yet she stands before you, unbroken. She is not here as a breeder. She is here as my equal. As your Luna." Gasps filled the room, some in shock, others in anger. Celeste and Selene exchanged disbelieving glances, their jealousy simmering beneath carefully controlled expressions. Lucian's gaze hardened. "Those who think to challenge this, who think to test me, will find that I do not make idle threats. Ava belongs here, and I expect my pack to accept her as one of their own." Ava, standing just beside him, felt her breath hitch. Never had anyone stood for her like this before. Never had she felt so fiercely protected. She lifted her chin, meeting the eyes of the wolves before her. "I am not here to take anything from you," she spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. "I only ask for a chance, to prove that I can be the Luna this pack deserves." A long silence followed. Then slowly, some of the wolves lowered their heads in submission, acknowledging her as one of them. It was not a full acceptance yet, but it was a start. Lucian took Ava's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "This is your home now, Ava, and no one will ever make you feel otherwise again." It was then that Ava knew she had truly won his heart. But winning the pack's acceptance would require more than words. Determined to prove herself, Ava threw herself into rebuilding the land that had long suffered under neglect. She began with the abandoned gardens, working tirelessly with the pack's workers to remove weeds, replant crops, and restore beauty to what had once been lifeless earth. The greenhouse, its glass long cracked and covered in dust, became her personal project, and soon it thrived, with herbs, fruits, and vegetables that would feed the pack through the harsh winters. She did not stop there. The orphanage, which had once been little more than a forgotten building, was restored with her careful touch. She spent her days with the young wolves who had lost their families, teaching them, playing with them, and ensuring they felt loved. The shelters, too, were repaired, ensuring that no member of the pack had to endure the cold nights alone. She refused to act as though she was above the people she now called her own. One afternoon, as she helped prepare food in the kitchen, a young servant named Ilara hesitated before approaching her. "Luna Ava, you shouldn't be doing this," Ilara said timidly. "The others might think it's beneath you." Ava smiled warmly as she kneaded dough, her hands covered in flour. "If I expect the pack to see me as one of them, I must first prove that I am. Titles do not make us better than others. Our actions do." Ilara hesitated for a moment before nodding, a newfound respect gleaming in her eyes. Soon, others joined Ava in her work, their previous skepticism melting away as they witnessed her dedication firsthand. Instead of merely giving orders, Ava worked beside the maids and the kitchen staff, rolling up her sleeves and cooking meals with them, ensuring that no one in the castle or village went hungry. The sight of their Luna, elbow-deep in flour, laughing with the cooks as they prepared meals, did not go unnoticed. Slowly, the walls between her and the pack began to crumble. Lucian watched her transformation with admiration, his desire for her growing with each passing day. She was not just his mate, she was his equal. And with each step she took to better their home, he knew that she had not only won his heart, but the hearts of their people as well. One evening, Lucian surprised Ava with an invitation to a private dinner, something he rarely arranged. Expecting an intimate meal, Ava dressed elegantly, her heart fluttering with excitement. However, as she entered the grand hall, she gasped in shock. The entire pack was gathered, the space adorned with glowing lanterns, vibrant flowers, and a long banquet table set with an extravagant feast. The air buzzed with anticipation, and in the center of it all stood Lucian, his eyes filled with warmth. "Tonight," he announced, "we celebrate the Luna of our pack, Ava, my mate, my equal, and the woman who has given us all hope." Tears welled in Ava's eyes as the pack erupted in cheers. She had never imagined such a moment, never believed she could truly belong. But as she looked around at the faces before her, wolves who once doubted her, now welcoming her, she knew she had found her place. Just as the applause quieted, Ava took a deep breath, her hands trembling with excitement. "I have a surprise of my own," she said, her voice clear, yet emotional. "Lucian, my love, our pack. I am carrying the future of this kingdom. We are expecting a child." A stunned silence filled the hall before Lucian's eyes widened with pure, unfiltered joy. His breath hitched as the weight of her words settled over him, disbelief momentarily freezing him in place. He had never dared to hope for such a future, had never imagined that life would grant him another chance at happiness. A rush of warmth spread through his chest, an emotion so raw and overwhelming that, for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Without a second thought, he swept Ava into his arms, lifting her high into the air as the pack erupted into jubilant cheers. Laughter and celebration filled the space as Lucian brought her down, pressing a deep, reverent kiss to her lips. In that moment he knew, Ava was not just his Luna. She was his heart, his future, and the light that had forever changed his world.